Hey, Calvin and Chris here hanging out this week with photography systems and discussions. This week I figured out how to turn on the Q&A section. So feel free to ask some questions and we can go ahead and answer them live on air for you. I'm Calvin, based out of Texas. Photography for many years, going on 15 years, and here to talk about different things for photography. Introduce yourself, Chris.
Hi, I'm Chris. I'm an IT guy. I've also been doing photography for many years, and it's a hobby, a side job, all of the above. I just love doing photography. So that's why I'm here, and I'm here to absorb some knowledge at the same time, share some knowledge. So
Awesome. This week we're going to have a little light show. It's just a couple of us that's going to be here. So hopefully we'll have an hour worth of content, but we may not be able to provide that for you today. But stay tuned. We're going to actually be able to offer more content in the future as well. So starting this week, let's go ahead and talk about things that we've done over the last week. I personally haven't gone out and really done any photography, but today my son had a football game, and I grabbed my Nikon point-and-shoot camera that I have and took a couple pictures of him out there playing football. I have not had an opportunity to take a look at them yet, but I'll post a picture or two inside the ClickSnap Capture community for people to take a look at, and these will be raw images, so I won't do any retouching or anything like that to them. How about you, Chris? What you been doing in the last week?
I've been process of shifting jobs actually. So that's what I've been doing. It's taking a little career move, but as photography wise, I've done some shooting around in the house, you know, taking selfies and whatnot, but nothing out, no real like work related.
Awesome. Yeah, I completely understand. My life has become hectic over the last 2 months or so, and I don't have the opportunity to plan things too far in advance unless I plan them and then set them in stone, such as travel. So next month I'm actually planned to go out to the Smoky Mountains down in Cherokee, North Carolina, and do some photography. So I'm going to get some of those fall foliage pictures done. Next year, I'm looking at actually going out to Michigan in probably September and get some fall foliage pictures. Have you had opportunity to do any or plan any this year, Chris?
No, I don't have any plans this year. I've been pretty busy. I've took on a little project over the summer, so my summer was killed helping out a family, and then yeah, I really don't have anything planned. But yeah, I definitely want to. I think I might want to check out like Colorado next year.
You know what part of Colorado?
Yes, Pitkin area. I don't know. I think that's what it's called, Pitkin, Colorado.
Okay.
There's some campsites there. I get family summer vacations there all the time, so I think I'm going to tag along next year.
Very cool. Yeah, Colorado is actually very nice, spacious, clean air, thin air. If you get a chance to visit the Pikes Peak area, they're considered a highlight zone. Go up to 14,000 feet and stay about 20 minutes, because that's about as long as they let you stay up there if you take the train up, and take some pictures at that high. It's actually definitely different. I did some when I went there in June and had a little fun with it because I was the only one there. I wasn't by myself. I didn't have anybody else with me. And I took group pictures with all these people. I'm like, hey, let's do this cool thing. And I basically set my camera up on the tripod and put the timer button on it, and then hit the button, and then I ran back and I told everybody, stay there, just stay there. And as soon as I jumped back, I jumped out and I pointed at the camera like, hey! Next you know, when I look back at the pictures, everybody in the group did the exact same thing I did. I was like, this is cool. I got interactive. So yeah, if you ever get a chance to travel, I always encourage people, you know, not real big into interacting with strangers, but if you get into group crowd environments where you can get people to interact with you, to me it's totally awesome because it adds that fun feature that you unplanned, you didn't see it coming, and you get a chance to get a unique picture that you're not going to go back next week, next month, next year, or even a decade and be able to do that same picture again. And to me, that's what adds the real funness of doing photography, is the ability to capture that moment in time that won't happen again.
Definitely. What type of like lens do you go? Did you take to Pikes Peak? Did you take a wide, or did you take just bag of everything, or?
I actually took my 16 to 35 lens with me, and I had my 24 to 70 millimeter with me as well. But I didn't actually strap that to it. I left that in the camera bag that I had strapped to me. Um, Last year, no, actually 2 years ago, I had planned down in downtown Fort Worth for a photo walk. And I went walking around with my camera and I took pictures of different scenes and things so I can be able to recall back and put together a little guide for us for walking. And I ran into the problem where I was trying to write something with my iPad and take the picture, and I found it clunky for me having the camera and the iPad in hand. So I went searching for a camera bag specific for walking around and shooting pictures with that allowed me to be able to carry my iPad with a little pocket. And they actually advertised it, said, oh, you can have an iPad mini with it as well if you wanted, which I personally wouldn't carry a laptop iPad, not the MacBook Mini, the little tiny one, MacBook Air. That's the correct term, MacBook Air. I wouldn't walk around and carry a MacBook Air with me, but I can understand people who would. But I just slide my tablet in the side that presses up against my body, and I keep two lenses in there typically, and the camera body with a lens strapped to it. So in that bag, I typically have my 50 millimeter lens, and I'll have the 16-35, and I keep the 24-70 strapped onto the camera. I like the 24-70 because it's a good general purpose lens for walking around doing pictures of streets and downtowns and things like that. It's not a wide angle, it's not a telephoto lens, but it allows me to capture a good distance of subjects and things like that.
Yeah. I primarily like to shoot primes, but yeah, for traveling, I usually take multi-zoom and just wing it that way.
Yep.
I figured it's better to capture something better than nothing. I think it worked out pretty good.
Right. Yeah, actually, for me, my 50 millimeter lens, I used that on my trip to Alaska, where I used it strictly because it offered me the widest aperture. So I'm able on my 50 millimeter to get down to 1.4, so I can have a faster shutter speed. And the situation had occurred. We was walking around the ship, and we was going down towards British Columbia, and we was on the tail end of our trip. And all of a sudden, it blows overhead that, hey, you know, we're going to be diverting off of course. We have to do an emergency pickup for one of our passengers. So we're going to cordon off this section of the ship so that we can have the helicopter come by so we can, you know, safely retrieve this person off the ship. I'm like, okay, well, let's go see what happens. You know, I've worked at a hospital for a number of years, and I've seen many helicopter landings and takeoff and things like this, but I've never seen it on a boat, much less a moving boat. So I was like, this ought to be different to catch these guys actually working hard. So we went up to the section where it was at. They cordoned it all off. You couldn't go there. So I went back to my room, which was at the back of the boat, and I walked on out in a little balcony pace, and I saw the helicopter come straight out. So I was like, well, I said, this 50 millimeter is going to give me the best chance of getting a still action shot because I can make that wide open at 1.4, getting as much light as I can and be able to hopefully capture a good still picture of it. And I was highly impressed. I took about 340 shots of that. And I can honestly say I probably got 50 to 80 good pictures of the helicopter coming into the ship, sitting on the side of the ship, people running off the helicopter onto the ship and then coming back onto the helicopter as well as the person. And I was impressed with that. I was like, yeah, this 50 millimeter came in handy at that 1.4. Hey, Gwen.
Hi, how you guys doing?
Doing good. So yes, I definitely admit prime lenses are definitely awesome. They have their usage. One of the guys, when I took photography course, they basically walked around with a 50 millimeter and they shot from the hip with that. And that's true skill to have a camera at your hip, be able to frame your subject without seeing it, and snap a good composed image of your subject. And that was the lens, the choice that they used was the 50 millimeter.
Yeah, that's definitely, it takes a little getting used to. Even just taking a selfie of yourself with a tripod, just camera and you, it takes a little practice to get the focus just right. And yeah, it's pretty much all my profile photos are all selfies that I take with the remote.
Well, if you want a tip to work on your focusing, and this is a cheat that I do, I'll take some type of object, typically a vacuum or a broom, and I'll put it on a stool roughly where I'm going to sit at, and I'll take the camera and focus on that item, and then I'll move it out of the way at that point and set it on manual focus, and that way I just press the timer and go sit down and pose up myself.
Yeah, I use a light stand basically. I just put it right where my eye's gonna be,
Hmm.
and try to come right back to that spot and
Yep.
pray for the best. But most of the time, it gets done indoors. I shoot at like 7:1 aperture, so I'm in.
Yes. Yeah, I typically shoot in a studio at a 7.1 so I can get that good depth of field. So that way, if I'm a little forward or a little backward, my focusing won't be able to tell that it's, oh gosh. If I
That
shoot.
would, yeah, I get the most keepers out of doing at a like 7:1 than trying to shoot it wide open. Wide open is just like you fire away 50, you might get one that's completely sharp focus. Then your expression's way off because you're like, ooh, did it take it right?
Yep. So Gwen, you have any interesting story to tell us about yourself?
I'm just in a rush today, just getting caught up. So I'm just listening at the moment till I can get settled.
Oh yeah, as far as going photography related stuff, I signed up for this Scott Kelby's annual worldwide photo walk thing.
Yes.
I guess they're doing it at some farmers market here in town, and I signed up for that. That's in October 11th.
Yes. Scott Kelby does something every year in around October, and it's pretty popular. Pretty much most of the major cities around the U.S. you can look up and find something going on and go out and hang out with those guys. The mileage may vary based on how much fun and how much you enjoy it. Because some photographers are very snooty and uptight, and some photographers are very outgoing and fun. So it's based on how your personality is, on how you blend with the group that you're going with, and how their personality is. I hung out with one group out here in Denton once and had a relatively good time. Also in June, they tend to have a big photo walk. Typically it's in June for the 1-year anniversary of Google. Or not the 1-year anniversary, but the anniversary of Google Plus being created. So those are two big opportunities for people as the world get together and actually do photography together. And they're pretty interesting. They're fun. But like I said, everybody has different experiences. I've heard from people who've gone and hung out with some of the groups and they felt like the groups completely alienated them. And I've heard with people like they totally look forward to it. They're doing it once a month now. So mileage will vary. I encourage people to get out and try it. Nothing wrong with doing something different. I ultimately look at what it is that I actually gain from the community of interacting with them for personal knowledge. Whether it be different photo techniques, different photo styles, different ways to use my equipment than what I'm currently using it, things like that I look to gain from it. Personalities, I worked in the customer service field for some points in my life, and I totally learned that you're not going to find a group of people that everybody is awesome and you get along with everybody all the time. That's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunities. So I try to just allow people to be themselves and not take it personal that I don't like what they're doing.
That's how it is. I mean, shoot, when I was in the Navy, boat full of 3,000 people, If you don't like all of them, you got no choice to like them to get along, You got to compromise here and there. But I did another walk a couple of weeks ago here locally. I found a Facebook group and hung out with them. And they're pretty good. There's some hobbyists. Most of them were hobbyists. There are some doing commercial work. There are some doing weddings and whatnot. But those guys seem like, they're pretty nice people and whatnot. And walks like this, I think, will be great because you get to see, like, multiple different gears, and sometimes swap out lenses if you're not sure. If you never shot with certain lens, somebody will have something that you're wanting, so you can swap it out and see how it works on your camera type of thing.
That's what I did when I was on the boat. I seen a number of people had Canon gear, so I was like, hey, you want to try this 70 to 200 millimeter lens? Or hey, you want to try this 85 millimeter lens? And I was showing off my gear because to me, the more people that get involved with photography, the better it is for all of us, because the more consumers are willing to invest in it because they're enjoying it, the more things that they're going to come out with that's going to be kooky and crazy that we never thought about. So I always try to share stuff with other people and let them try if they have something that I don't have or I have something that they don't have, because at the end of the day, it's truly a passion for me. I truly enjoy photography as a whole, with sharing the knowledge and the interaction. And hey, look at this setting on your camera. You can do this or you can do that. Or manual is not too much to be intimidated about if you try these different things. And automatic is great. Use it. But if you want to go ahead and change the things that the automatic won't do, then here, try this first with your manual mode. And I always give people tips and tricks, tell them to try. I don't know how often they actually try it or what they do with it, but to me, it's totally up to you. I can give you information. It's up to you to try to see how it's going to work for you when you want to disseminate it.
Yes, because I had been stuck on auto for the longest time. Even with the regular point and shoot camera, it has the capability of manual, and it was so much easier for me to just autofocus and do whatever I could do. And as I've been progressing a little bit, I've noticed I've got shots coming up and doing things auto won't get it because of the lighting. And so bit by bit, it's becoming easier to use the manual on the cameras.
Yeah, the more knowledge you have, the better you're going to be as far as using manual. Manual gets tricky too a lot of times if the lighting changes all the time outdoors. It can get a little tricky, but if you can, I'm not saying chimp every shot, but if you look at your photos once in a while, you'll see, okay, I'm getting a little blown out here. Let's, adjust it kind of deal. But if you can see that blown out highlights and you know how to get it back, I think you're good. Because when you rely on auto, all you're doing is just pointing and shooting. There's no point of having a big, huge camera. I think most point and shoot will do the same exact thing,
Yeah, one of the things I tell people with the auto, and when I got my 20D, I first started doing when I finally turned on to the manual mode was when I had it in the auto mode, I would look at the bottom, and when I press the button down, the auto will give me the settings that it's about to use to take that picture. So it will slightly press it and be like, oh, it's going to shoot at 5.6 at 1/500th of a second. So I would then turn it over to manual mode and set it at 5.6 and set it at 1/500th of a second. And I would take that picture and like, okay, I did it in auto. I did it in manual mode. That wasn't auto. And then I would start to adjust my shutter speed, which is the 1/500th of a second, or I would adjust my f-stop or my the aperture, which is the 5.6, and I can adjust that to change the mood of the picture that's in there, whether I wanted it to be brighter or if I wanted it to be darker with those settings, or if I wanted to change the depth of field or if I wanted to change the motion. Because the aperture is going to control your depth of field. Last week I talked about it. This week I'm going to talk about the shutter speed and how it can do it. But those two things combined together is probably 85 to 90% of what you do to compose a good picture. The automatic mode actually, its whole sole purpose is to get you a composition that is well lit. It's not based on the subject. It's not based on what you're doing. It's just looking at mathematical formulas that's built into it to say, where do I need to put the lighting at? Where do I need to make it brighter? Where do I need to make it darker? So that I can get 85% of the image at the same, at the end of the day, light casting across it. And that's what automatic does. And it does a really good job for a lot of different scenes, but it doesn't take into the account the scene that you're capturing. Capturing a portrait, you're going to have different settings than you're going to do someone running. Capturing a group of 10 people, you're going to have different settings than if you have just 2 people. So that's where the automatic starts to break down on its usage versus the manual starts to become more important with its usage. If all you're doing is just running around taking random snap pictures of things, automatic is going to work for you 99% of the time. But if you're starting to capture pictures of people running, people jumping, all kinds of different activities and active things, then the automatic is going to start to fail you, and the manual is going to start to kick in and start to be better.
Are all these noises?
Which noise in particular? Are you hearing my background noise?
I don't know. It's like a dinging noise. I don't know if that's somebody chatting in. Because I don't have the screen on me, so I don't know what's going on in the chat box or anything like that.
That might be my email.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, my stuff dings and rings and bings all the time. All right, so hi.
So I think getting the awkwardness out, like going out in the street kind of thing. Earlier we talked about how, you did your group photos and whatnot. Like socializing, letting people know exactly what you're doing is so much better than people guessing.
I can barely hear you.
Like the auto setting or like the group pictures we were talking about.
Right.
How when we go out, getting that awkwardness out of approaching people to get shots or be part of the shot, and learning to like socialize with out in public. I think it helps taking photos because like doing street photography, people, I think last week we touched it where people look at you funny or whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
But if you approach them and like, boom, be straight up, hey, I'm doing this, do you mind? Or, give them a little story, but don't beat around the bush, but just give them a straight up, what you're doing, and approach them in a nice, professional manner. I don't think anybody will have a problem cooperating. Just like you say, everybody made that same motion, on that group photo. So, learning how to talk and communicate with people. I think that's one of the biggest things going out and shoot.
Right.
Even clients shoot.
I'm fortunate enough not to have a problem with that. Whether it be on the street or just sitting around in a restaurant or whatever situation, I have been very fortunate where I can approach a person and come up and say, random stranger photo, or hi, may I take your photograph? And I've had good results with that.
Yeah, for me, it's been hit or miss. I've had times when I've been out and I've had people approach me about taking their picture because they see me taking pictures. And I've had time where people look at me cockeyed and crazy because I was asking, can I take their picture? I haven't really learned a way to appeal to the majority of people. I typically will just take pictures of random things, and then if people are in the area, I try not to just approach women in general, but to approach the crowd of people, because a lot of people, at the end of the day, they're intimidated by people that they don't know, based on their own preconceived conceptions of who you are and what you potentially may do to them. If they've had a issue with someone that's been short, that's been stalking them, then they may appeal that you're just like that person. Or if someone's tall or someone's big or someone's skinny. So there's no real way that, everybody can approach people the same way and be able to get the same results. But I think the best approach is to basically be taking pictures and let people know, hey, I'm taking pictures of these things, and say, hey, do you have any other people that want to take pictures with you? Because I want to do this or I want to do that. I think that's an easier approach with taking pictures of people versus individuals, because some people are comfortable with having their picture taken by strangers, and some people, they're very standoffish to it. Some people it's religious things.
Photographers, it's just, I think we're afraid of the answer no. So by not asking, you're automatically getting no. So I think the best approach for that would be to have a system, use it one time, say you're just going to straight up walk up to them and say, "Hi, my name is Chris. Can I take your photo?" If they say no, great. Next time, revise that, but have a, like a systematic approach and keep using the same approach, like that guy from the Humans of New York, Streets of New York, or whatever. He's got that thing down to science. He's got like New York Times best-selling author. All he does is approach people. He basically gets their background, history, where they've been in their life, kind of thing, and takes a picture of it and he posts it. Everybody's cool with it. But in the beginning, he mentioned that he got rejected pretty much 8 out of 10 people that he asked, but he stuck with it, stayed with it, had like a format, keep improving it. Now it's to a point where almost everybody is okay with it. I think it's called Humans of New York.
Mm-hmm.
I saw an article about that gentleman that you were talking about and how he approached people and had people to do a random hug with each other, people that had never met before, just hug and take a picture like that, and how strangers cooperated with him. And with me, I sort of gauged a person's body language. It's something that just clicks, and or either just look at their eyes as I'm approaching them, and I get a sense of, okay, I can talk to this person, I can approach this person, I can photograph this person without a problem. But if you sort of, once you get familiar with that, you'll get a sense of who you can approach and who you cannot approach. And if I'm told no, I've had people ask me, but doesn't that bother you? Doesn't it hurt your feeling? No, it doesn't hurt my feeling. I'm the one that instigated the contact. So it's just like if I'm walking down the street and I'm waving, hi, how you doing, whatever. If a person does not speak back, that's not going to bother me because, again, I instigated. I did my part. If they don't want to respond, that's on them. The same way with taking pictures. If the individual doesn't want the picture taken, put the hand up, oh, so be it. Move the camera. I was doing some street photography in Wilmington, and I went down by the waterfront where the homeless people were. And when I approached at first, one guy gave me the finger, and I said, "Wow, he's putting up barriers before I even get there." So I said, "This is what I'm on target to do, so I'm going to go ahead with what I had started to do." And I went on and I started talking with them, with different ones. Another lady that was there, she put her hand up, "Don't take my picture," before I had even said anything to her about it. And bit by bit, I started talking with different ones, letting them know I'm not there to harm them. I'm not there to turn them into the police or anything. I'm there to tell their story. And before I left, everybody was smiling. I had pictures of everybody. I had a story just about from everybody. And even the guy that gave me the finger apologized. So, it's how we present ourselves and what atmosphere that we can connect with the different individuals.
Yep. It's just almost like going to a job interview. It's like first impression. You look like a stalker, just approaching with a big old camera in your head, in your face, then yeah, they're gonna be like, no thanks. But I mean, if you approach them like a human being, I think you'll get a better result.
Yep, I completely agree. Once people look at you and don't feel that intimidation from you, you can do a lot more with them as an individual. But for some people, they have their preconceptions that no matter how good or great of a person you are, you're going to be able to not get through to them. Kind of like when I was working years ago, they basically had all of us do team-ups, and we cycled through our pairings until we got through everybody. And this lady, when she finally worked with me, she was like, "You're so quiet." She's like, "I didn't think you was this calm and quiet." And it's like, what did I do to make you feel that I was loud and boisterous and all of that other stuff? It's like, you never heard me yell, you never heard me get upset. Where's this preconceived conception that you had? But if she was not forced to work with me, she probably would have still had that conception of who I was without even really dealing with me. And that's how some of these people are when we approach them about taking pictures, whether it be online, whether it be offline. people have their preconceived conceptions of who you are, and when you get an opportunity to actually deal with them, it's a good chance they'll change their mind. But some people, they'll never give you that opportunity to change their mind. They already have this, he's a guy. He wants to take advantage of me, or, he's like all other photographers. He wants to have sex with me, and they have no reason to have this conception because they never worked with a photographer. But they have these conceptions, and you're never going to live them down until they decide that you get the opportunity to live it down.
Well, I've been still working with my model. I'm working with individuals is sort of getting new, really new for me, and getting poses, and placing the arms and angles. Some of the pictures that I've taken could have been better if I'd have had her to place her hands in a particular way, or hold her back in a particular position.
One tip for you with taking pictures of models and pictures of people in general, it's a-okay to cut off body parts, but you don't want to cut off certain styles of body parts. Like if you're going to get the arm in the picture, you don't want to cut off the arm where you get it like this. You want to have the whole arm in or the whole arm off. Same thing with the legs. You don't want to cut too far down the legs where you cut off the feet and the ankles, where it looks like you cut off the feet and the ankles. So you kind of look at it as joints, and that's where you cut. If you get too far along a joint, or below a joint, or above a joint, then you want to include all of it or cut it all off.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'll take that in consideration. Try to remember that.
And another tip? Oh, what'd you say, Chris?
I was just gonna agree with you on that, like basically.
Another tip for slimming of the waist, you basically have the person stand at an angle. So like they stand like this is the front of them. Then you want to have them rotate their body. So if they stand like, basically so that they'll stand this way from the camera, so their hips and their waist is facing this way. And when they rotate their body toward the camera, it'll cause a natural stretching of their stomach muscles, and it will slim their stomach and their waistline down.
Okay.
And that's for standard portrait shots. You can do it with model work as well, but for portrait shots, that's something that's good that you do. You have people basically rotate. So you're standing in front of them. You tell them face 90 degrees this way, or have them face 90 degrees this way. So either left or right. And then once they do that, you tell them to simply rotate their shoulders towards you, and that's how you create that stretching effect of the stomach.
Okay.
You have anything to add there, Chris?
Yeah, if it bends, the best advice I got was if it bends, bend up. Here's like an illustration here. I don't know if you can see. Yeah, there we go. Instead of a straight up stick figure, the legs, knees bend up, waist, if it bends, bend up. You know how women like have curves and whatnot, hips bend up, arms bend up, but don't create like symmetry, both the same thing on both sides, make one side a little different than the other kind of deal. So you don't want to have this, you want to have maybe one here, maybe one around the waist, or somewhere, like something different than just always constantly together, like standing at attention.
And as they get to be better as models and modeling, there's the rule of thumb in the industry. If it's not hurting, you're not doing it right. I don't model, so I can't tell you what all that means, but I just I take it as the concept that if they're not stretching or bending in the right way, it's not going to hurt. So if they do it the right way, they're going to feel it.
Especially when they're doing boudoir photos.
Mm-hmm.
They bend a lot. Try to arch their backs and things.
Yep. Any other questions, Gwen?
That's basically what I'm needing help with right now is to uh, get good things going for her because she's trying to build up her portfolio and needed headshots to turn in. See, in Wilmington, they've got the movie studio there, and there are several movies being produced right now in around in the area and in North Carolina in general. And so there, a lot of people now are beginning to submit as extras, and she's one of them. And she did get one casting call with the headshot that I did for her, and she got something with a commercial. So I've got to really get this to come up to par.
What you also may want to look at doing with natural light photography is to work on getting a reflector and a stand. That's something you can get for 100 to 150 bucks and get a little cheap reflector and a stand. So by default, you don't need the stand. You can just have either someone come with you or someone come with the model and they can hold the reflector for you. Or if you get the stand, you can get a clamp for it and put the reflector onto that, and that will allow you to reflect light back into the model's face to provide feel to prevent the dark spots and the darkness in their face that shows up because it's too bright behind them and there's not enough light on them. So a reflector is very helpful with that. It can add, 1-2 stops of light for your picture. Based on how bright it is, you can potentially get more, but typically you can get 1 or 2, where you can capture a good backlighting of them, such as the blue Carolina sky, and be able to capture the beauty that's inside their face versus having it too bright and then you lose the Carolina sky, or you get the Carolina sky and it's too dark in their face.
Okay. I'm seeing if I can get something to pull up here so that you can see what I'm talking about. Okay.
You want to post up one of your pictures?
Can you guys see that?
Just a little bit. Is that on Google Plus?
No, that's on iPad.
Well, where is it at? That's a picture that you downloaded and you took yourself?
That's the look you're trying to achieve, right?
No, this is the one that I took of her.
Okay.
Is it on the internet yet? Because if you want, we can put it on the Hangout with the screen share and we can talk about it.
Okay, I'll see if I can do that.
See, like that right there is good, except the fingers are missing on one corner, kind of thing.
Yeah, that's what I thought about when you were talking about cutting off body parts. I did. I cut off the fingers on her.
It
And
happens to all of us, so we don't see it until the end of the shoot. I'm like, oh, this is the best one, yet the fingers are missing, kind of deal.
I didn't get the feet in.
And I've done it way back when I was shooting, when I first started shooting models in the late 90s into the early 2000s. And like Chris said, you don't think about it until it's afterwards. For me, I did not initially start thinking about it until people started pointing it out to me. And then I started to think about it after the shoot, and then I started to think about it during the shoot. And once you start getting really comfortable with shooting, you build up that time and experience, you'll start to shoot out of 2 eyes instead of 1. Right now, by default, when I first started shooting, I always shot out the eye that was looking through the camera. And that's all that I saw was only what was through the lens. But as I started to get better with it, I started to open up my second eye, and I use my second eye to gauge the environment that I have going on around me to decide, oh, someone's about to walk in front of the lens, or oh, this is out of the angle, or my favorite, I don't think I want that trash can in my picture.
I'm going to try to get the picture on the screen, so if I mess something up, I'll be back.
Well, if you have it on your Google Plus, I can share it on the screen for us.
No, it's not in Google Plus. It's just in a file on this computer.
Okay.
So if I put it in Google, then you can bring it up.
Yeah, if it's in Google, we can do the screen share and it can bring it up and everybody can see it.
Okay, I'll put it in Google.
You don't have to. I totally understand not putting your work out there until you're ready for it to be shown to the world.
It's okay.
I'm, I tend to wait. That's why my Alaska pictures are still sitting here on this tablet.
Hmm.
I still want to work on my Colorado pictures. You guys been holding me back. I would have been done with the Colorado pictures by now.
Let's see.
But no. Somebody told me I had to work on my Alaska pictures.
You travel too much.
No, I just don't have a lot of free time. Like this is one of the pictures from Alaska. I like, hey, can I take your picture? Sure. And he was a nice guy. I met a lot of cool people on the cruise ship. This was all the people staring down. And look at all these cameras everybody's out there taking pictures with.
Oh yeah, that's another thing that bugs me is like I don't know if you saw Ray Rice, not Ray Rice, Ray Lewis's that statue thing when they revealed his statue.
Huh.
Everybody that was in the stands, they had their iPhones, the iPads, even like full-size iPads with cover on it, so they're holding the flap open, covering the whole thing up. They're like this, taking pictures. I'm like, are you serious?
Well, that's one of the things. I have an iPad. I have an older generation iPad. But I like the cover that I have. It basically folds in half. And I can fold it up into half or three parts. And it makes it much smaller for me to be able to see. So I can hold the iPad up like this and take a picture. Well, my new Samsung tablet, my camera is there. And the flip covers the camera. So I have to hold it like this if I want to take a picture with the thing. I'm like, this makes it beyond clunky. If the camera was over here and I can actually not have to cover it up, I'll probably take more pictures with the thing at random because I'm not taking pictures to live for memories or anything like that. This is just at the moment in type, and it's like they take that away from me. It's like, darn you, Samsung, you're so stupid.
Yeah, that's what I saw. It's like row of 15, 20 people, yet everybody in the front have their covers and their tablet open, and I bet you the ones in the back never got a really good shot of it other than pictures of people's tablets.
Okay, can you guys see that picture now?
Yep. Now, if you talk, it stays up there. When we talk, it disappears and becomes smaller.
Actually, we can click on it to stay on it, I believe.
Right, but for the recording of the show.
Oh, okay.
So Gwen has to talk about the picture so we can actually have the picture up there.
All right, go ahead and keep talking for a few minutes.
Well, I have
Describe
How's it? Do you see it now?
Yeah, now talk about the picture and describe it so that way you're the main camera focus and that way it shows up nice and big.
Okay. We were down by the waterfront on the steps by the Linden Federal Building. And I just had her to step down a few steps. The light was beginning to fade. And as I see the picture now, I see things that I should have did. I should have had her to open up more, and that way you wouldn't have seen a little wrinkles here on her side. I don't like the way her feet are standing there. I see several different things that I would have done differently.
The side part on her, I totally dig what you're saying. That's 99% of the time you're not going to avoid it. Just because that's natural. It's considered undesirable as far as fashion is concerned, but I look at it as just being human. That's something that can be photoshopped and corrected if that's truly what your desire is. You know, if you're looking to create a lifelong memory so that you can look at this forever and ever and be happy about it, then yeah, I will Photoshop it. But outside of that, I will leave it there. Just my personal opinion. Um, I would look at framing of her basically with the lines. When you look at the lines of the stairs and the lines of the wall, how do they frame up with the picture and what we're actually looking at there in regards to her? They're off. Like the lines on the wall on the right lean more towards ends towards her, but then the stairs look kind of straight. So when I look at that, that makes me look more at everything else versus her. And that's just how the first things that my eyes would be brought to it. And also along with those lines, you also have the lines at the top of the building that all those lines are different focal points, and ultimately you want to have those lines draw them into her. So maybe rotating the image a little bit, maybe doing some cropping, making the lines focus more on her versus for me looking at the lines.
Okay, let me get another one.
Well, let's see what Chris has to say.
Okay.
The color, the light on her is way. I don't know if it's because she's dark skinned, but the background seems a lot brighter. That could be done in Photoshop. Just have two separate layers, one background layer, and then just merge them together. But background is pretty bright. My eyes are like constantly drawing towards that building in the back.
Okay. Now, let me get this one and see if I can get another.
Go back 3 pictures or 4 pictures now.
Are you seeing what I'm clicking on?
Yep.
How's that? It's too busy because that water fountain's in the background.
Mostly, to me, it's the light that's in the water fountain that makes it busy. The light draws me into it. She's well lit. She looks good. But that light, because it's orange and it has that green, it draws me into looking at the lighting more than looking at her. If that background was more muted, then she would definitely stand out as the subject, because that's typically what shows up with flash photography. When you flash, your immediate subject gets all the bright light on them, which is what she has, and the background kind of fades out. But because the background has the equal amount of lighting with it, the background is more busy with the lighting, so it draws me into that lighting more versus her.
Okay. Now, I like that one. Even though that street light is right there, I like the lines there. I like the angle of her knee, the color of the shoes popping out.
Uh-huh.
What do you think about that one?
Hold on 1 second.
Man, I'm trying to look through this phone here.
All right. Yeah, I like that one. Once again, the lines on it to me, though. So you got the lines that's drooping and telling towards me from what she's leaning up against in the ground. Those lines are drawing in towards me, and they help focus me back onto her. But then that light on the right is visually something that draws you in. So you can actually run through Photoshop, a little quick thing. You can darken that and pull the lighting focus away from her. I like the background lighting, how it's soft and it sits right behind her head. It curls her head in my view.
Okay. I was thinking about just popping that light completely out.
You can try it with cropping and see how you like it.
Okay.
Yeah, that light is definitely in the way. I guess that's part of the architecture between her hips and the hand, whatever the dark spot. I can't really make out on this little phone screen.
There is a dark spot on that leg. That's a bag, a handbag.
See, that's the kind of stuff you can remove. If it's removable, I would remove because I mean it doesn't need to be part of that unless she's holding onto it or something. If she's modeling for, say, handbag, doing a commercial shoot, yeah, hold a handbag. But if not, that's to me that's just I'm looking through the phones. That's what I'm seeing. I'm like, what is that little dark thing? Is it part of the architecture or is it, you know, it's taking the attention away from the model.
Okay. I see it again. That we left the bag.
Yeah, just watching out for the surroundings and leading lines.
Now here we were down on level.
See, like, go back on that one.
Here.
Yeah, she is straight up like stick. There's no like womanly figure showing. Just by bending the knees in closer together and shooting the foot out, and then bringing the knees together, and then kicking the hip out, that'll give her a nice shape. But right now it's just straight up like vertical line.
Okay.
Too close to the wall, that's what I say, the shadows. I don't know. Can you see it in the can you see it, Calvin? Is that shadow I'm looking at? I'm looking at basically the picture is about 1.5 by 3, so
Yeah, to the left of her, you see the shadows.
yeah, so I would remove her from the background a little bit so that way you don't get that distinct shadow.
Okay, I'm gonna speed this up till we get to an area where I did have a picture that I was. Uh-oh. Well, I'm out of those. No, there she is again. There with the water fountain before it got dark.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got to be careful when we use that water fountain to make sure that the lights are going to interfere with her.
Yeah, she needs to be the brightest part in the picture, not the fountain.
And see here, the hands are just loose. No directions right with the hands.
That just looks awkward.
It really does.
Go back one. One more. See that right there is pretty good. See how her knees are bent? It's giving that little bit of a figure on the hip going up. And also the hands, they're not like level together. One's here, one's there. Even that's good in a way. And also you want to look for like little gaps in between the side of her and the arm that create a little triangle basically using the arm and the body. That shows off the figure.
Okay. All right. I'll remember that.
I feel completely odd right now. I can't seem to figure out where my pictures are at. I know I've taken pictures in 2013, and I know I've downloaded them. I have no clue where they're at.
Sounds like we need a cataloging session.
Well, I'm pretty organized, but since I haven't been shooting as much as I have in the past, and then I've changed computers, I've just now like, huh? What happened?
Yeah, I still battle with that naming conventions to all this and all that. It's never ending. I improve one thing and something else is jacked up kind of deal. Oh.
I wanted to show you guys some pictures, and I can't seem to find anything from recent. Like, I know I downloaded these pictures. I know they're not all on my MacBook.
Are you you doing off-camera flash, Gwen?
I left the flash at home when I did the last shoot. I've got to put it in my bag.
So you're using the pop-up flashes on your camera.
No, I did not. I used all natural light.
Okay. Well, I mean, I was talking just because of that one part where she was like right next to a wall, and it created that harsh shadow. Usually, when you use a direct flash, you get more of that. And also on top of that, like I said, yeah, removing subject a little away from the background helps
Okay.
when it comes to hard shadows. What else? I think the biggest tip, it has nothing to do with you taking pictures, but screen calibration. I don't know if anybody uses that or not. I think that's the biggest deal breaker. Online sharing, not so bad, but when you print, your prints look nasty if your monitor isn't calibrated right. I don't know if you guys had experiences with prints.
I haven't had a negative experience, but that's definitely something that if you just Google it, you'll become lost with all the different tips, tricks, pointers, how-tos, the rules that you should avoid, rules that you should never avoid. It can definitely become overwhelming because I first started attempting to print with one of my new printers that I got years ago. And when I first bought a printer, pictures came out gorgeous. And I bought the new printer, I was like, oh, I got to calibrate it. I got to do all this stuff to do it, and I got to do it in sRGB versus Adobe RGB versus this versus that. And I couldn't get nothing to come out right. And it frustrated me because when I had less technology and I had less knowledge, it was spot on. And then when I get smart about it, it becomes even more of a headache.
It's you got to get with the program with the print lab also, see what kind of color space they use. And there's, yeah, it's a long list of things, but yeah, once you get solid at shooting and whatnot, that'll be the next step, I guess. Or either that or at the same time try to improve on that area. Because every time, color and whatnot, because every time if I just normal on an uncalibrated monitor, if I just print my images, they're about 30% darker usually. Color's a little off. It looks a lot muted because your monitor usually are typically a lot brighter than any print will ever be.
What type printer are you using?
Oh, just printing in random labs all over the place. Internet labs, local labs, even my own printer. I use a Canon just regular, like, all-in-one printer, but it's just every lab that I send to, the same image comes in all different. I've tried it in so many different ways. Yeah, it's once I got the calibrators, then once your monitor's calibrated, then when you do the exporting in the Photoshop, you need to export it to the correct color space and whatnot your print shop uses so that everything meshes up, because if there's a shift in color between your computer and the print lab, you're going to get different results. And so it's a complicated process, but yeah, that's another area we need to look into once you start getting real serious at it.
So I'm going to go ahead and share this for a second. Looks like we're approaching 8:30 relatively quickly here, but here go some pictures that I've done years ago. These were some with my Nikon 990, and then others were with my Canon when I first started shooting. So took this picture here, natural lighting. We was down over in Deep Ellum. She brought a couple props with her. We had a total good time taking some pictures. So she changed from the white to the black and brought out some samurai swords. Took this up in Denton over by a local college. Total natural smile, laugh. My photo sessions, I typically like to capture people being natural. She decided she wanted to do a topless shoot, and this is what we created. And I find a lot of people who will do it on the fly will produce some better pictures than people who will sit up there and type or talk online about doing nude pictures. She just out the blue was like, hey, I think this would be a hot look, let's do it. And it was me, another photographer, and then one of her female friends that was modeling as well. So we basically did one-on-one. I shot with her, and then the other photographer shot with her friend, and then we swapped, and then we did a couple group pictures together. This was the first model again. A little soft focus around her face as you take. Are you seeing the bigger picture?
Just seeing thumbnails, but I could kind of make out. I mean, as far as posing wise, like the one below that, directly below that one, that's perfect. You can see the curves on her hips and whatnot because that's separation. Bending of the body, even on the picture that you just.
Okay, now you can see it bigger.
Yes.
I just realized you couldn't see the pictures. So this one bigger.
See, even that, it's not straight erect body. It's nothing more boring than a straight power pole, basically. So that's her lower body's this way and then curves up. So that's enough curve, I think, for posing wise. It makes for a flattering image than just someone standing straight up or just one leg up or resting on something.
Mm-hmm. And then flirtatious picture. We did this. One of the photographer guys, it was 3 of us out there, he brought out the little safety gear, the helmet, the little cone, and we took her picture, and she just had a lollipop, like, oh, this would be flirty. And boom. Next you know, you get a picture that provides something a little bit different to it versus the standard pose.
Yeah, that image alone wouldn't be a good image, I would say, because it really doesn't tell a whole lot of story, but in an overall scheme of things, it tells a story. But alone on that picture, you see a tip of a little, whatever, safety cone and a lollipop. Right. By itself, I don't think it'll be a good image, but on a whole entire like photo story goes, you can fit that in there. It's a good picture, you know?
Yep, overall it's good, flirty, but like you say, it's missing the elements, it's missing the body. It's missing the cone. What's the cone doing there?
Like, where is she at? Like, you know, that type of deal. But on a storytelling in the larger scale, it would be good.
I took this picture in Tennessee, driving across to the Smoky Mountains. This young lady here, she had never did any model shoots at all before. She had shot some pictures with me. She did it just out of fun. And the whole picture speaks volumes of stories and emotions. This is one of my favorite ones that she took.
It's good light, colors like blend in so well. It's nice. Yeah.
And then she has these beautiful tattoos on her back. She got Tigger on this side of her, and then she got Tomb Raider on this side. And talking about framing and body, I framed her around a rock.
That was different.
And that's it for this group. I seen this picture years ago. I fell in love with it. I wanted to create it again. I met a redhead who said she would do it, but she never made time to actually shoot with me. And last one is this.
That's a good close-up. I would, if anything, that the small little things like the earrings, I would have pulled it out so it's not wedged against the thing kind of deal. But, I mean, we can sit there and nitpick every single picture for hours and hours on at a time. Yeah, I mean, it's good. Good framing.
That's when the art director would tell you, just Photoshop the earrings out.
It's I don't know if you guys ever shoot tethered, but yeah, if you shoot tethered, you could like literally see all these small little mistakes.
Yeah, when you put it on a 15-inch or larger screen.
Pick out all the flaws right away, whereas if you shoot it like that, you like, yes, I nailed the shot, come home, and like, dang it.
Yep. So next week I'm actually going to go over my workflow. On a lot of photographers. A lot of photographers likes to take their pictures and then put it into Adobe Camera Raw and then put it into Photoshop or Lightroom and then go from there. I do it slightly different. So I'm going to go over that. Anybody has anything they want to do as they're partying?
With their what?
Party, exit. We're past 8:30.
Let's work on recruiting some more people.
Right.
Definitely for it. So hopefully next week we'll have a little bit more formatted. I'll talk with everybody who's going to be in the Hangout a little bit more in advance, so that way we can plan on who's going to attend and what we're going to talk about. Thanks for attending. Have a great night.
All right.
See ya.